Some breaking news. Early this morning, gunmen reportedly broke into one of the parishes presided over by the Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Sokoto, Matthew Hassan Kuka. According to eyewitnesses, the hoodlums kidnapped 2 priests and 2 others in the rectory of St. Patrick's Catholic Church in the Kafor local government area of Katsina State. The kidnapped victims are the parish priest and his assistant, Reverend Stephen Okwaja, Oliver Okpara, and 2 boys in the house were also kidnapped. Arise News will keep you updated as the story unfolds. Well, unfortunate incident that just occurred in the Sokoto state, resulting from that tragedy that occurred where Deborah Samuel was set ablaze. This is still happening. We're not sure whether or not this is the regular kidnap or it's from that. I guess we will continue to know as the story unfolds.
Audrey, whatever it is, we're losing our country. Let's not deceive ourselves. Our country is fast becoming a place where we struggle these days to call our home with all of these kidnappings. Only recently, one priest that was kidnapped, that had been in kidnappers' den for a while, was killed. We all remember a couple of years ago how terrorists attacked a priest in Benue and they killed the priest, murdered the priest in cold blood. So we have a country where people don't even have respect for priests, for men in the garb, men in religious institutions any longer. To what end is all of this? And the big question is, what is our state doing? Because you see, in every state possible, there must be the monopoly of violence held by the states. And I keep repeating this. When you go to other states in the world, what makes a state is they have accurate technology to survey, and if anything happens, they quickly sweep in. But what is the case in Nigeria? We invest billions in defense, but Nigerians are not defended. So where are we going? We invest billions in defense, but the kidnapped victims from that train attack, now the kidnappers, the terrorists are saying they are going to kill them. They are even giving the state a 7-day ultimatum. And one too many times in the past, terrorists have done what they said they will do, and they've killed people while the state watches on. We are sick and tired of the president constantly going to do condolence visits. We are tired of it. The state should take action. That's why we subjugated our sovereignty to the states. And the sole responsibility of the state, I keep reading in our Constitution 14.2, is to protect life and property. Please, these priests must not die. They must be released. The state should swoop into action, use everything possible.
Dr. Bati, no one is safe anymore. They've resorted to kidnapping priests
this is frightening.
Yes.
This is disturbing, and I hope that this is not the sign of what is to come, and that this is not an indication of, the predicted implosion. Every election season, analysts from different think tanks internationally say, Nigeria is teetering on the brink of, collapse, or it's on the brink and all of that. And truly, what has been happening recently, very disturbing. Ahead of the electoral cycle, the transition that we're facing, the process of which has already started. On March 28, there was the bomb attack on the Kaduna-bound train from Abuja. Up to this moment, more than 60 persons, more than 100 persons are still in captivity. The Nigerian government has not been able to resolve that. On May 14, in Sokoto, the Shehu Shagari College of Education in Sokoto, a 20-year-old 200-level student, Deborah Samuel, was lynched and set ablaze by our own colleagues for reasons that have not been properly determined. The same day, here in Lagos, in Lekki, Sunday Daniel Obi, or is it Imo? Sunday Daniel Imo, was a sound engineer, was also killed, again, by persons described as motorcyclists, commercial motorcyclists, who became a mob. A day after, in Aguata, local government, in Imo State, police station was attacked, Persons were, were killed. Persons were, abducted. Shortly after that, in the same, in Anambra State, Honorable Okoye, I hope I recall very well, also from the same Agwata local government, was kidnapped. And he was beheaded. And his head was hoisted on a petard, as if we were in a situation where the Vikings have suddenly resurrected in Nigeria, playing with skulls all over the place. And now we hear that in Katsina, no, it's in Katsina, the parish, the parish is in Katsina, although St. Patrick's Catholic Church in Gunmen Cambo is under the Sokoto Diocese of the Catholic Church, under Bishop Matthew Azankuka. We heard that Reverend Ojapa and his assistant, Father Okpara, and 2 boys, who were in the parish with them, have been kidnapped. Their whereabouts remain unknown. And those who have tried to establish a connection between this and what happened on May 14 in Sokoto with the killing of Deborah Samuel, they probably have a point. So Nigeria is effectively at a crossroads. We're in a delicate situation. And when you add all of this to the fact that on Sunday, which was the example I left out, I think, in the East also, a woman called Fatima and her 4 children, they were killed. At this moment, IPOB and a coalition of northern groups, the coalition of northern groups is saying there will be retaliatory action. IPOB, through Emma Powerful, is saying no, we have no hand in it. The Eastern Security Network is not involved in banditry and terrorism. And that if you guys attempt any retaliatory action, the end of the crisis, nobody will be able to tell. This was how the Civil War started. No country can survive 2 civil wars. If you know any example, well, tell me. Maybe I do not know. So all of us in this country, we have to be very careful. The 2023 election should not be a do or die process. The security agencies should be on red alert because the level of security threats in Nigeria is continuing to go up. All that some madmen need to do is to just trigger and put the country on fire. And all of us, whether we are journalists or members of civil society, or we are security agencies, whatever we are, or politicians, must know that the elections will come and go. But this country must remain because we don't have any other one. And everybody must respect the rights of peace-loving and peace-abiding persons like us to live in a country that is stable and that is peaceful. I hope that, the 2 reverends, Reverend Okpara and Reverend Ojapa, and the 2 boys kidnapped along with them, will be safe. And all of this coming shortly after the Christian Association of Nigeria protested and called on the Nigerian government to protect Christendom in Nigeria. It's very scary. But all of us must just remain sane and sensible.
Absolutely. Moving along. It was a scene from a movie, but this was not a movie. After more than 8 hours standoff, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission forcefully arrested Senator Okorocha on Tuesday. The anti-graft agency had invaded the residence of the former Imo State governor and All Progressives Congress presidential aspirant in a bid to effect a court summons, but met some resistance. Our ICE correspondent, Ferdinand Duoha, has the story.
Gunshots, tear gas and pandemonium at the Maitama home of Senator Okorocha as the supporters of the APC presidential aspirant are dispatched from his residence. The EFCC say it is effecting a summon as the 7th senator has jumped an administrative bail. They had been prevented for over 8 hours from achieving this target by the former governor who had resisted and his supporters who had questioned the motive. He claims it is a political ploy to prevent him from attending the APC presidential screening set to happen this week.
Since morning, I've not been able to go out, and there are policemen and EFCC all over my compound, and my gate is blocked with their car, and All I'm asking for now is that could they please allow me to go for my screening? I have screening going on right now with all the presidential aspirants. My election comes up on Sunday. And if I'm not allowed to go for this screening, I might miss it.
Should be given time to report, either later this week or early next week, or any time other than the day of the screening of these presidential aspirants on the platform of APC, in respect of which the distinguished senator is a most prominent person who is to be screened for the office of presidency of Nigeria.
While the standoff ensued, the residence was besieged by various support groups, including women who came to show solidarity. Part of the EFCC, this was a signal to reinforce, with officers visibly strategically positioned around his complex to prevent the senator from escaping. As the evening drew closer, the EFCC attempted to disperse the crowd once again so they could effect the arrest, an instruction the crowd blatantly refused. This officer also asked the waiting media to leave, an instruction which was also not honored.
This is time for you guys to go outside. No, you can't. No. All right. Can't determine that.
Then came the menace as the officials tear gassed the crowd and shot sporadically, assaulting anyone in sight. The commission finally had its way at about 6:45 p.m., breaking into his living room.
My Lord, my God. And Papa came, my Lord, my Lord, my Lord, my God. No. I thank you, mighty God. Okay, thank you. Can I open this door?
They're breaking the ceiling. They're coming through the ceiling. Look at this, look at this. There is somebody without any document. Daddy,
and forcefully arresting him. The media returns to see the chaos which is left behind: broken doors, damaged roofings, furnitures, perforated walls, and several other damages, which tell horrifying tales of what would have happened. And so the over 8 hours waiting game comes to an end. Nigerians asking, what exactly is the motive behind this arrest? Is it all about stopping the man Rochas Okorocha, a presidential aspirant of the All Progressive Congress, from indeed participating in the screening? Or, as the EFCC says, it is time to hold him accountable for whatever offences he has committed. Ferdinand Duroha reporting for Arise News.
I guess Ferdinand asked the right question, the motive for this arrest. Why is it coming at such a time? And he was appealing to the EFCC to allow him to go for his presidential screening. A lot of people are saying it's politically motivated. I mean, it is so unfortunate that this is happening to him at this time.
Okay, well, I mean, I can't blame people who are reading political motives to the timing of it, because it will appear that in the reckoning of such persons, that with this development, Senator Okorocha has been already eliminated from the screening process within the APC, which I understand is slated for, this week, ahead of the party's presidential primary on May 29 and 30th. However, I think the more fundamental questions to raise are as follows. One, the fact that nobody is above the laws of the land. Senator Okorocha was here on this program at some point, and he said he has no case to answer before the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, and that he has not done anything that is wrong. However, as a citizen of the country, as an ordinary citizen who is no longer covered by Section 308 of the Constitution, which grants immunity, he is required by the law to make himself available upon invitation by the investigating authority, What the EFCC is saying, that has been reported, is that he jumped bail, administrative bail, that is. And after several invitations, he has refused to honor the invitation of the EFCC. Now, the EFCC then feels compelled to enforce that invitation. Their defense will be that nobody can resist arrest. You are no longer covered by immunity. If you are invited, an invitation by the EFCC technically is an arrest. Okay, so he was supposed to go and report himself to them. So on that grounds, the EFCC will be holding the strong end of the wicket. The second point has to do with a search warrant. Does the EFCC have a search warrant? For any agency at all to go and attack a person's house or wherever that person is to enforce an arrest, you must have a search warrant. That search warrant must be duly assented to by a judge, a magistrate, or a justice of the peace. That is what, ACJA, the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, spells out in Section 148, in Section 149, and also in Sections 9, 10, 12, and 13 of the Act. So the question to ask is, okay, the EFCC, who went to Okorocha's house for up to 8 hours to try to enforce arrest, did they have a search warrant? Did they inform the person that they have a search warrant to access his premises? Under Section 149, subsection 2 of ACJA, it is stated that, yes, the security agencies can use reasonable force to access the person they want to arrest. Okay, what amounts to reasonable force? In ACJA, what is stated is that you can break down the door, you can go through the window, but in this particular case, they went through the roof. Okay, would that be considered reasonable force in the eyes of the law? But the only option available to Senator Okorocha is maybe to go and test that in court. Did they come with a search warrant, or this was a case of forceful assault on his residence? So his fundamental human rights, he can enforce them if there is an issue there. In Section 148 of the same ACJA, the mode of administering the search warrant is properly defined. So these are some of the relevant issues that I think will come up. But the residue of it, of course, is that 1, immunity does not last forever. 2, nobody is above the laws of the land. And all of those considered, however, we're hoping that Senator Okorocha will be given fair hearing, that his rights will be respected under the Constitution, and that no attempt will be made to turn this into a media trial. And that we hope the question that our correspondent raised, that this is not politically motivated.
Yes. I guess we don't have much time.
We don't have much time, but it's become a media trial already. Yeah. This has become a circus. Yes, the EFCC invited him, he dropped administrative bail. But my question has always been, is this the best way we can effect an arrest? Destroying somebody's property, is that part of it?
That's the question in everyone's mind.
Shooting sporadically into the air, which we know the antecedents of what shooting sporadically is into the air has caused in this country? Is that the best way to go about it? If a man has a case to answer, is that the best way to go about it?
Well,
is this how we build a country?
Him say in that video clip that Ferdinand showed us, I thought I heard him say that the courts had not served him that summons.
In fact, his lawyers have gone to court. Right. And just based on what you were saying, Dr. Bati, they're enforcing his fundamental human rights. And what they're also saying in taking the EFCC to court is the fact that consistently that he got court orders restraining the EFCC and they violated those court orders. But we're going to still have that conversation today with some people that come to speak about this. So let's take the news story because of time.
All right, then. Well, that's all on the news headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Road to Sodiri, Michael Wilson, and Aaron Akerijola give us updates on Africa global business and sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The ongoing African Development Bank Group's annual meetings in Accra, Ghana, featured a high-level presidential dialogue on the development of Africa along with its challenges and opportunities. Arise business correspondent Rotu Sodiri was at the Accra International Conference Center to take it all in and filled in this report.
Day 2 of the African Development Bank annual meetings in Accra, the commercial capital of Ghana, took place in the massive Accra International Conference Center, which showcased traditional dancers to greet the arriving dignitaries from around the world. Inside the main hall, Ghana's #1 citizen, President Nana Akufo-Addo, headlined the main attraction of the day, which was a presidential dialogue on Africa's development challenges and opportunities. In his opening remarks, the president heaped praise on the efforts of the leadership of the AFDB to improve development across the African continent.
The African Development Bank was ranked by the prestigious Global Finance magazine as the best multilateral financial institution in the world in 2021. It is equally impressive that the African Development Fund was also ranked by the Center for Global Development in the US as the second best in the world amongst all concessional funding institutions.
In his opening remarks, the president of the AFDB, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, spoke in glowing terms about the stellar structures of the bank and its operations.
Our boards are working, and they are effective and rigorous in carrying out their oversight functions. Our management is working. Our governance, control, and oversight systems are working. Our risk management systems are working. We are a very well-run, a very well-managed bank.
Dr. Adesina also took aim at The Economist magazine, which published an article on May the 19th questioning the corporate governance standards of the bank.
But we will not be defined by concocted, outlandish, fabricated, tabloid, horror movie made-up stories, which some disgruntled people seek to paint about us, which are false, biased, ill-motivated, and completely baseless.
Ghana's Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta spoke about the need to address global financial fund flows to low and middle-income countries.
Crucially, we must also use this forum to bring growing attention to the fact that the current global financial architecture does not provide the requisite benefits needed by low and middle-income countries to develop. We have all said so on many fora, but who will do this? And one of the writers of our national anthem, Ephraim Amu, says, Asem aba, hina no beka. Ejuma aba, hina no beye. The talk is going on. Who would really speak? And the work is to be done. Who will do this work?
Following the opening remarks, proceedings then shifted to the high-level presidential dialogue on Africa's development challenges and opportunities. The panel was moderated by Victor Oladokun, Senior Advisor to the AFDB President for Communications and Stakeholder Engagement. The panel featured Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo, Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of Mozambique Felipe Nyusi, President of Comoros, Azali Assoumani, Vice President of Côte d'Ivoire, Melet Kone, and Prime Minister of Rwanda, Edward Ngurente. Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan said when it comes to leadership of a country, anything a man can do, a woman can do better.
When I came in the office, the first one, as you said rightly, that I was the first female in East Africa to be the president, and Tanzania particularly. So the first challenge was a trust, to make people of Tanzania have a trust on me that I can deliver I can run the country the same way men did.
Rwanda's prime minister spoke about his nation's post-COVID recovery and measures.
And they start, investing there. And this is why we're able to build, in that period of the first 9 months of COVID, we were able to build 22,000 classrooms because we wanted money to be circulating over there and to support that education sector. And that's because we believe in human capital development.
All in all, this huge stage at the Accra International Conference Center played host to an incredibly robust dialogue, discussion, sharing of ideas, and a call to action, courtesy of the African Development Bank on behalf of the continent of Africa. Reporting from Accra, Arise News, Rotus Odiri.
Well, Rotus Odiri joins us live from Ghana to give us update on the ongoing African Development Bank annual meetings. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, OG. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers. So yeah, very eventful day 2, which was yesterday, capped by that panel, high-level panel discussion where a lot was discussed. And now we move into day 3. So they don't open up for another hour. They're still putting things together. I didn't mention this yesterday. COVID tests, despite the fact that you can't get into Ghana unless you're fully vaccinated, the African Development Bank has been carrying out rapid antigen tests every single day of the event. So we were tested yesterday, we're going to be tested again today, we're going to be tested again tomorrow, Friday, so that continues, which is an unpleasant experience, but that's what they're doing. So they're very serious about their COVID protocols. But today is a packed level of events today. One, we've got a breakfast session which is going to be looking at sustainable development goals for the African continent and key drivers, key actionable items for inclusive economic growth across the continent. Then there's going to be a session on special drawing rights. Then there's going to be an outlook report, and I'm a nerd, I love these research reports, coming from the African Development Bank on the theme, which is key climate resilience and also a just energy transition. So they'll be releasing their research reports, outlook reports on that. Then after that, there's going to be a knowledge session on sustainable or resilient digital economies and how to get more green investments, green bonds, climate-friendly investments into the African continent. And after that, the Africa Investment Forum is hosting an investment roundtable where they'll be talking about FDI, foreign direct investment, coming into the African continent. And then after that, there's going to be a today's Africa Day. Africa Day, of course, commemorates the creation of the OAU, which is not Obafemi Awolowo University. It's actually the Organization of African Unity. Back in May 25th of 1963. It was then remodeled in July of 2022 to become the African Union that we know. So African Union is 20 years today, and the theme for that is going to be nutrition, which comes at an incredible, pertinent time, considering the food supply shortages, supply chain issues from COVID to the war in Ukraine, the African Development Bank putting forward a $1.5 billion fund for food. So nutrition is the theme for African Day. And then after that, to round up events today, the African Banker Magazine African Banker Awards. That's going to close out the day. There's been a record 64 nominations that have been received, largest nominations that they've received so far. And they're also including 2 new categories, DFI of the Year, Development Financial Institution of the Year. I understand the Afri-Exim Bank, Benedict Orama, he runs that. That's been nominated. And also FinTech of the Year. They're putting a new FinTech category for the Africa Banker Award. So it's packed. It's packed today.
Well, Rotus, as we say, street parlance, you are doing well. You are doing very well. Very quickly, a number of issues. I think the focus on nutrition is very important. Both the IMF and the World Bank, and even the United Nations, during the recent visit by Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the UN, to 3 West African countries, had pointed out that the world faces a food crisis. And one of the major issues today is President Vladimir Putin being accused of weaponizing food to create a food security crisis in the world, which is one of the major themes in Davos, which is ongoing about the same time as the AFDB general meeting in Accra. And of course, you know that because of the invasion of Ukraine, we have issues with wheat. We have issues with cereals generally, affecting the cost worldwide, from bread to cake to even noodles. Indonesia has stopped the export of palm oil, right? India has stopped the export of wheat. India is the second largest producer of wheat in the world. Malaysia has now joined and says it is stopping the export of chickens because domestic prices of chicken has gone up. At this rate, we may not be able to eat chicken again unless everything stabilizes. So it's important to focus on nutrition, and that is linked with agriculture and how Africa can protect itself in the face of food nationalism, or if you like, food protectionism, which is an emerging fallout. However, beyond all the issues, I see that the AFDB president, Dr. Adesina, has tried to defend his bank against the Economist article, which Rufai Hosseini drew attention to yesterday, about AAA rating, about $3 billion invested in COVID response, support of the bank for women. But are there other issues that people are talking about at that conference, particularly the association of Dr. Adesina with the presidency, with the presidential race in Nigeria? Because I saw a report saying that the AFDB board is trying to sit to interrogate Section 10 and Article 12 of the AFDB Code of Conduct, and whether indeed, AFDB President Adesina has done anything, to violate the Code of Conduct, even if he issued a statement at some point to say he was withdrawing. Finally, yesterday we discussed the Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Well, we're told a decision has been taken. Okay, yesterday I quoted Cowrie Access, AfriInvest, and financial derivatives. But I've seen since then a document showing me that indeed AfriInvest also predicted a 50 basis points increase in the MPR. Okay, I saw that, but I was relying yesterday when I said AfriInvest was neither here nor there on reports that I read in the newspapers. But I was sent an original document saying this is the exact position of AfriInvest. But all those analysts, in fact, the MPC exceeded their expectations. And talking about AfriInvest, in that report that was sent to me, they said they do not expect a unanimous vote. And their prediction was excellent in that regard. Because what then happened was that the members of the MPC voted 6-5. The 11 members voted 6-5. And now the MPR has been increased, not by 50 basis points, it's now up to 13%. The asymmetric corridor is retained. The liquidity ratio is retained. But, okay, it will help check inflation. But what do you think are the implications of this? Particularly for manufacturers, particularly for the cost of funds within the Nigerian environment. And there are concrete statements that we know about foreign exchange, about economic growth, and the direction in which Nigeria's monetary policy is going beyond this.
All right, let me start with your question on the African Development Bank and corporate governance and the board. Dr. Akinwumi Adesina yesterday, during his speech, actually highlighted the board. He asked them to stand up. So they stood up and everybody gave them a round of applause. So he highlighted the board. He said the board is doing their work well. They're behind him. It's a unified front. No one is really talking about any other corporate governance issues. They pretty much put up a full wall of unity, saying that they will not be distracted by the article. And so pretty much any other talk of anything outside of what their mandate is, they're not looking at it. I am hoping to interview him though and ask him if he's planning to run for president. But he hasn't said anything about that. He looks like he is fully focused on climate change, on energy transition, women-led SMEs, the food shortages. That's all Akinwumi Adesina is focused on. So the MPC, the monetary policy rates being increased by 150 basis points, far exceeding all of our expectations. They're tightening. They're more hawkish now, which will theoretically increase the cost of borrowing. And it's a tightening cycle. But the key thing here, Doctor, is that like the US Fed, like the Bank of Ghana, everybody else, it looks like the MPC now, the CBN is now, if they've made inflation their main target as a result of raising these rates, you now fall into a cycle where you're chasing inflation. The Bank of Ghana has raised rates twice. The Fed has said, Jerome Powell said he will do everything in his power to bring down inflation. So once you make that statement, you are now, if inflation keeps rising, you are now in a situation where every meeting you are chasing inflation and you continue to hike the rates. As far as the manufacturing sector that you mentioned and other sectors, the MPC did mention, or rather the central bank did mention that it will maintain its intervention rate at 5% for some key sectors, healthcare, manufacturing, I think power and one other sector. So that is still being maintained. The intervention rate was at 9%. They cut it at 400 basis points to 5% when COVID hit. And so they said they are still going to maintain that. So that should give some cushion to those sectors that are trying to access intervention funds.
Well, thank you very much, Rotus. We hope to hear more updates tomorrow. Moving on to more business update, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Michael.
Yes, so Asia-Pacific stocks nudging a little higher. Rotus was talking about central banks chasing inflation. Very well put, if I may say so. I think that's what they're all doing right now. The Reserve Bank of New Zealand has hiked its official cash rate by 50 basis points, that's 0.5%, to 2%. That's setting quite a hawkish tone. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong advanced very slightly. China Composite, the Shanghai Composite, up very, very slightly indeed. I'm going to refer now, we're going to leave the Asia markets, go to President Biden's trip to Asia. He's talking, do you remember that phrase that they used to use when Clinton was president in the United States? It's the economy, stupid. Now it's economy is security. That's his message to Asia. What they'd actually quite like to see is the color of America's money. They're not seeing that right now, but it's pretty obvious that the United States needs to, as do the Asian countries, the members of that Quad as well, which is an informal security alignment in response to China's growing threat to security in the Indo-Pacific region. And what they're saying is that economic cooperation is the future. We were saying yesterday, talking about Australia's election, all about climate change. The real thing that they're thinking about now is what is Tony Albanese going to be doing as far as climate change is concerned? And what does that mean for companies? Will it mean, because he's not actually, the election's not quite finished yet, as I understand it. I think there are 2 more seats to come. And if it can't form a majority, then it's going to have to take on board a lot of green-leaning, green-focused independent and minority candidates who be putting their own pressure on the new Labour government to listen to them. And will it stretch its emission targets? It said 43% by 2030, based on 2005 figures. Will that target be stretched? It'll be coming under a lot of pressure, I would imagine, from domestic companies to do that thing. Let us turn our attention to the United States, and stock futures rising very, very slightly this morning after those losses on the NASDAQ yesterday. Weaker than expected services PMI report there. And home sales down a bit too. Dow Jones was up about 111 points yesterday. Nordstrom shares, that's an interesting one, isn't it? So some retail activity actually going on there. The NASDAQ, though, fell 2.4% in regular trading, and the losses came after that warning from Snap, which spooked the digital advertising industry, and that, of course, hit Facebook's parent Meta, Twitter, and Google's parent Alphabet too. And they're thinking that there's some of those prices are slightly high. As far as the reliability of the United States as a trading partner is concerned, took a bit of a hit yesterday. White House officials explicitly refusing to rule out that the US could enact crude oil export restrictions to help cap energy prices domestically. Now, that's really one to think about as far as the United States is concerned, given that Joe Biden himself has said that rising inflation is one of his main concerns. We'll turn our attention now to Europe and the PMI data, fairly mixed bag yesterday. Consumer demand takes a hit from the rise in the cost of living. Well, we know all this, don't we? The euro rally still continues, though. And the UK PMI steady, basically. Manufacturing steady. Consumer and services down to 51. Remember, anything below 50 suggests pessimism. UK shares, let's turn right into the United Kingdom. Shares in power companies fell sharply as Rishi Sunak appears to be drawing up an emergency energy package. That means that Drax, which is the owner of the UK's largest power station, down 60%. Centrica and SSE down about 9%, as well as North Sea oil and gas producers as well. So that we expect some kind of announcement maybe by tomorrow. UK faces a summer of chaos and travel disruption. The largest union has voted overwhelmingly, well, at least 89% overwhelmingly, for strike action there. Turnout was 71%, which is very, very high indeed. We're talking about railways and not about British Airways, incidentally. White House unnerves oil markets, and oil prices continue to trade quite high overnight. Asia, though, seen Brent crude and WTI, West Texas Intermediate rise, and gold as well, up very, very slightly on a weaker dollar. That is your global view.
Right. I mean, a lot to talk about, Michael, this morning. Let me start from Australia real quickly. I don't understand what Albanese is talking about, when he talks about climate change. Australia is the fifth largest exporter of coal in the world. And they've got companies like BHP, Bulletin, and the likes. So is it trying to come clean on coal? Is that why he's making this case for climate change? Or it's just that waffle or waddling or whatever it's called? Because I don't get this hypocrisy of the West. And every time God sees my heart, I can't get it. Secondly, I want to talk about what is happening as regards to the market, in America. Since that slump, it looks as though the market is struggling. The inflation is still high as regards, energy prices in America. Petrol pump prices are still on the increase. Does this make a case for people that call for alternative sources like shale and fracking and the likes and all of that? And also to segue that into what is happening in the UK now, with Rishi now trying to put some money into the energy companies when they're already at the brink of defaulting on most of their contracts. I mean, they've bopped up their contract rates. There's going to be another rise in October. Is this better late than never by Rishi?
Okay, so the Chancellor of the Exchequer does not control interest rates. That's down to the Bank of England. So in other words, the Bank of England probably will put up rates next month. I think that's pretty much a certainty. As Rotus was saying earlier on in the programme, and I thought he put it really well, a lot of these central banks are actually chasing inflation rather than setting the agenda. So what the Chancellor is doing, as I suspected he probably would, is bending to political pressure. It's nothing to do with economics, nothing to do with business. There may be a windfall tax on electricity generators. I still suggest that this is a plaster or a bandage rather than surgery, but if that's what the public wants, that's probably what the public will get. It won't solve anything. The surgery is trying to look round and energetically try to place some thinking outside the box and get energy prices and the cost of living down. It's not about occasional grants to the public and making them feel slightly better. I think that's what we'll get. I don't think it's a solution. As far as Australia is concerned, I hope that I was trying to make it clear in my earlier report what the new Prime Minister, if he indeed is one and can hold his position without having to take on board a lot of Green campaigners, which I suspect he will, is saying that climate change, of course, is something rather important. But you're absolutely correct that Australia uses and exports a lot of coal. How it actually manages to get round that by its 2030 target, I do not know. And I don't think anybody knows at the moment. And that's why there is a suspicion that if that particular government in Australia, the Labour government, is forced to take on board more green credentialed lawmakers, then of course, those targets are going to be stretched. Who's going to be around in 2030?
Well, two things. Now, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has put together a team of economists to look at options. What options are actually available? Yesterday, Ofgem, the energy regulator, said, oh, look, by October, there will be a rise of up to about £800 in the energy cap, and, total per annum, about £2,800. Now we see Downing Street running up and down to look at options. Now, what likely options should we expect? Is it energy bill support scheme? Is it money for households? Is it warm houses discount? Is it winter fuel payment? Or is it the much talked about windfall tax, which already has affected the markets with the shares of the North Sea oil and gas companies? Or is this really, in terms of timing, about the Sue Gray report, an attempt by the British government to just divert attention away from the Sue Gray report that is expected today? Secondly, earlier on with Reuters, I drew attention to the threat of food nationalism. Malaysia now says it's not going to sell chickens anymore because prices have gone up domestically. Singapore is likely to have issues because Singapore takes a third of its chicken supply from Malaysia. Indonesia has stopped exporting palm oil. India has said no, it will not export wheat again. So every country now is just going in the direction of food protectionism. And yet, the IMF, the UN, they are talking diplomacy. Is it diplomacy that will solve the problem? What other options really are available? Now that in Accra, Ghana, the African Development at its AGM is talking about nutrition, because the main concern is about the threat of malnutrition. In the UK, shoplifters are on rampage. In the US, people are entering stores to steal soup and food. So the world really faces a crisis. What are the other options in that regard?
Well, as far as nutrition is concerned, I think it's down to things like the World Trade Organization and the UN to bring what pressure they can actually bear. I suspect they can do absolutely nothing about it. They will say that they will do a lot, but nothing at all. What's the reality of it? Do you want to have, as they have in Ukraine, a huge crop of grain with nowhere to go? Do you want a similar thing to happen if you were the government in India, to have a huge domestic amount and nowhere for it to go apart from your population? Those are the real questions, aren't they? In other words, if your economy is based upon exporting and you can't do that anymore, then you have to ask yourself as a government some real questions about where that's going to go. I would say that probably long term, I think you can expect China to be looking round the corner of its rather ill-fated alliance with Russia, because remember, those two leaders met early this year and said that they were going to enjoy a relationship without limits. I suspect there are a lot of second thoughts coming from the Chinese leadership there, and maybe they will help alleviate some of the famine and the nutrition problems that the African the African bankers are talking about right now in Accra. But beware that, because it will come with a cost. There's no question about that. And I think, again, I'm sure that the Prime Minister and the Chancellor need to be seen to be doing something in this country. I'm not exactly sure what the answers are. Has everything been explored? Are people looking at their own domestic diets and thinking, should I be eating this? Should I be eating all that sugar? Should I be eating that chocolate? Should I be cooking more? Or should I be taking processed meals away? All these kind of things. We'll be seeing pages and pages of this in the various newspapers. So I think there's a lot of habits to be changed as well. I mean, yes, you're right. We have this extraordinary thing in this country of the police saying that they should be lenient on shoplifters. What? Are you sure about this? So in other words, I can therefore now leave my commenting role with you, nip down to the supermarket and steal some stuff without thinking that the police are going to come after me. Are we sure about this? No. Well, of course we're not. Those habits are changing. Food banks are finding that they're running out of food and so on. But is our nation, I can't speak for other nations, I can only speak for our nation. Are we actually looking at what we're really eating and really cooking? I doubt it very much indeed. Are there economies to be made? Yes, there are. I would be asking, if I had them, if they were still alive, I'd be asking about my parents and my grandparents during the Second World War. What did they do? How did they actually manage to survive? But they did. That's what we're facing now. So I think it's quite right that the whole part of the world, the world that was getting used to globalization and cheap products, is now thinking, good heavens, food is actually quite expensive, and somebody's got to live off producing that kind of food. But it still needs, it will right itself. Business will find a way round these kind of things, as we were talking about that food corridor through the Bosphorus, for example, yesterday.
Well, thank you very much, Michael Wilson. We look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Thank you.